I'm on the phone with Susan. She says, "Oh my gosh!" I'm like, "What?" She goes, "The LIV Tour just merged with the PGA Tour."
Boom.
I'm like, "What?
Yep.
The what?" I almost pulled over on the 405. If I wasn't speeding, but
luckily I was in traffic when it happened,
dude. I'm like,
wow.
Are we serious? The LIV Tour and the PGA Tour are merging. How in the hell does that work? Yeah. And I'm starting to see statements come out from the PGA Tour, the DP World Tour. The Dan Patrick World Tour is one of my favorite. But, that's the folks over in Europe. A new collectively owned for-profit entity that ensures all stakeholders benefit for a model that delivers maximum excitement and competition among the game's best players. Now, I don't want to go too deep into this because this is a business story. This is a sports business story, and it makes sense that CNBC was the entity that broke this story. Because this is a sports business story. It's a political story. It's a world politics story that just happens to involve sports and a major sports entity that plays in the United States of America. Even though the Canadian Open is happening, but I think you understand North America, whatever you want to say. Mm-hmm. Because this is a business story. It's a politics story. So you got to stick with me here as I do my best to try and understand it. I spoke to a couple of people this morning who were in the know. I'm like, explain it to me like I'm 5, will you please? And, there's the PGA Tour is a nonprofit, but it's also saying it's a for-profit entity now, and they're still maintaining what's called a 501c6 nonprofit entity status in the United States. It's very confusing. Trust me. So I don't know how this all works. And you know who also doesn't know how this all works? Anybody who's not named Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, and the folks involved in the Public Investment Fund, which is the PIF, which is what the Saudi Investment Fund is being called, because this is Saudi Arabia buying the PGA Tour and also buying the lawsuits that are going between both entities, the LIV Tour and the PGA Tour, buying them, dropping these lawsuits, because that's part of this merger is litigation is getting dropped. That's what this is about. I had it explained to me again from multiple people. The Saudi prince doesn't want to be deposed.
Nope.
Okay. And the LIV Tour players won't back in on the PGA Tour. This is what's been described to me. And so everybody gets together and tries to figure this thing out, how to make it work. And again, we're going to learn more about this news. I'm coming on the air within an hour of finding out about it and reading about it and making some phone calls about it. This is the way it's been described to me from multiple people. Okay? And how it comes across is easy to sum up in 2 words. It stinks. It stinks to high heaven. That's 5 words. Because in the lawsuit, the countersuit that the PGA Tour threw on LIV, Jay Monahan was quoted as saying in the countersuit is I'm quoting from the countersuit. The LIV is using players, quote, and the game of golf to sports wash the recent history of Saudi atrocities. And today, what Saudi atrocities? We don't know. We have no idea. You tell me about these atrocities. Boof, gone. Okay. Money. Read about it as much as you want. There's a new board. The PGA Tour will say that they're also have their nonprofit status. They're still a charitable organization. There's also a commercial entity now that the PIF, the Saudis, are the exclusive investors in, and they can also be in charge of who else is allowed to invest moving forward. What does that sound like? Somebody who owns something, correct? And so they're going to get together and figure stuff out. What does it look like? The team aspect of the LIV Tour is apparently still on the table. I don't know how that looks on the PGA Tour. Because I'll tell you what, the guys who said no to the LIV money and are now watching all the LIV guys who took the money have a path to come back and play with them with their fat ass wallets in their back pockets. You think those guys are going to want to put on a Fireball golf shirt and
aces
and team up with those guys?
Smash.
How does Rory McIlroy feel today? Tiger, who turned down damn near $1 billion. And you could sit there and say, Rich, they're fine, whatever. But this is the principle of the matter. They were principled in a situation where Jay Monahan, the PGA Tour commissioner, sounded principled and then heel turned. Because I cannot imagine how much money was put into this kitty by the PIF. And how do you think Rory and the guys who turned down the money feel when they turn on Twitter today and see not only these tweets from LIV Tour players? Phil Mickelson, awesome day today with a smiley emoji. Brooks Koepka, your recent
PGA
champion. Welfare check on Chambly. Now, he's referring to Brandel Chambly, the NBC, Peacock, Golf Channel analyst. He would call moralist, hand-wringer. The LIV players hate him. Mm-hmm. How do you think the guys who turn down the money feel when they turn on Twitter and learn of the news? Through Twitter. Colin Morikawa. I love finding out morning news on Twitter.
Two-time major champion.
Jay Monahan did send a memo to the tour players. If you're also on the back end of the tour, you're sitting here thinking, does that make me, am I at least going to be what, the 53rd man on the roster if I'm ranked 200, 225, 250, 300? Do I now get at least a base salary? Do I get benefits? Do I get child care? What do I get now? Obviously, this is all going to get figured out. What if they didn't want the Saudi money? They're now going to take it just to get a tour card? What about the majors? How about this? What if, let's just throw this out here, because you're already seeing the majors, like, say, the PGA Championship. You're already seeing some, because of the readjustment the PGA Tour made based on how much money LIV was pumping into the game from their end of things. You're already seeing some of the purses on the majors not be some of the largest purses in the year. What if LIV decides, or pardon me, PIF or the new entity decides we're going to have a new tournament and we're going to pump so much damn money into this, we're not going to call it a new major. We won't call it them, but the money will speak as if it's a new major. What does that mean? How's it going to look when we all know the game, feel the game, appreciate the game the way that it has been with the tradition that the PGA Tour is still waving in its press releases today? And in the press conference we'll play in a second from Jay Monahan. What if that totally gets upended by the money that gets pumped in here? It's going to be on the players to actually sit here and say, well, we're not going to play in that tournament, or we'll play in this one, or we're not playing in that major anymore because I'm kind of tired from making all that much more money at some de facto new major that's been created, say, on a course that might be owned by an individual who has been all about the LIV Tour over the last several months. I'm just saying it's totally changed the Saudis' own golf. Period. End of story. Jay Monahan, though, held a press conference today. And Jay had this to say about how it's going to unify the game of golf. Hit it.
There's been a lot of tension in our sport over the last couple of years. But what we're talking about today is coming together to unify the game of golf and to do so under one umbrella. And, David, the way that we're doing that is we're creating a for-profit LLC that the PIF is going to invest in alongside the DP World Tour. and together we're going to move forward, and we're going to take efforts to grow and expand this great game and to take it to new heights. And so what's happened today, and to your earlier question, is we've recognized that together we can have a far greater impact on this game than we can working apart. And I give Yasser great credit for coming to the table, coming to the discussions with an open heart and an open mind. We did the same, and the game of golf is better for what we've done here today.
Sitting next to PIF's Governor Yasser Al-Rumayyan on CNBC. Pardon me, it was not a press conference. This is all so fresh. It's happening fast. Unifying the game of golf. In his letter to the PGA Tour members, he said, "We will work cooperatively to establish a fair and objective process for any players who desire to reapply for membership with the PGA Tour or the DP World Tour following the completion of the 2023 season, consistent with each tour's policies." This is a complicated endeavor and one that will be guided by established PGA Tour rules and regulations. What is the established rules? The established rules and regulation is if you go to LIV, you're out forever.
Right.
What the hell does that mean? But they're unifying the game of golf. Oh, and I forgot. The LIV Tour is about the young kids. Because it's on the CW. Available on Roku, by the way. Here's what he had to say, Jay Monahan, on that subject.
When you look at the game on a global basis, there are now more people playing the game outside the U.S. than playing inside the United States. Okay, you look at everything that has transpired in terms of the forms of distribution, Topgolf, and all the other ways that people can interface with our sport. There are now people off-course, more off-course participants than on-course participants, and that combined audience in the U.S. is 48% under the age of 35. Reaching a younger demographic at a time when the sport has never been more popular, and doing so by coming together to collaborate at this point in time, that's where we see the commonality and purpose, and that's where we see this huge opportunity.
Let's ask the LPGA Tour about the new entity that's involved in a country where they can't drive. Listen, this is about business, youth. Get out of here. I don't know a single kid that plays golf that's like, tell me about the Four Aces team.
Yeah, right.
You know, what's going on that LIV Tour?
Yeah.
That 5,000 people are watching on the CW.
Joke.
It's about business. It's about the business of having these lawsuits dropped. It's about the business of taking the money that the tour excommunicated players for doing and rallied around the players that didn't defect and pushed them out as the face of the PGA Tour that was fighting against the sports washing of the Saudi atrocities. And that entity just turned around and said, what atrocities? And that, in a way, for sports is an atrocity in its own. Catch the Rich Eisen Show every single day on the Roku channel, 12 to 3 Eastern, for free.